Closing up the week here on 2822 Sports Night presented by Hyundai. It's a Thursday evening, the final day of the week for us here on the show, and we've got a lot to talk about: football, basketball. Our Bucknell Bison are in New York right now, taking on the St. Johnnies, the number 14 team in the country. Very similar first half to Ricky. I know you're a busy man, so I know you were occupied with some stuff. I was tuned in for a little bit. Very similar story for Bucknell to their last game against Pittsburgh, where they came out of the gates hot, quickly cooled off, and now they're down big. They're down 16 at halftime to St. John's. It's a difficult team. It's a difficult Red Storm team led by Rick Pitino, one of the greatest head coaches in college basketball history. We've got a lot lined up for the next hour here on Sports Night. There's a lot of football to catch up on. Ricky wants to tell Steelers fans it's going to be all right this weekend and that they're going to go to the Windy City. And you're smiling over there. You feel... Give me one word to describe how you're feeling going into this weekend as a Steelers fan against the Bears.
As a fan?
And I guess you are representing all of NEPA watching right now that's a Steelers fan. You are the voice of them. One word, if you are on a pillar, they're all looking below you. Ricky, what's one word to feel going into the weekend? What's that word?
Cautious.
I
think it's very cautious.
Is there a particular reason why cautious?
Because again, your defense played really well. The run game, of course, had some sparks with Jaylen Warren. But you also realize Mike Tomlin is your head coach. You have to realize there's a quota of how many games you could win with Mike Tomlin. It's either 9. My friends and I have come to the conclusion: you either win 9 regular season and have a chance for a postseason victory, or you win 10 and there's no chance for a postseason victory. So very cautious. So hopefully, I'm hoping for that reason, just hoping the defense could again sustain its momentum this week against a really, really good Chicago offense with a lot of young weapons. But they have been in some close games recently. And then offensively, there's still no wide receiver too, so you're banking on Aaron Rodgers going out there and lighting up a Chicago team that he's owned throughout his career. But the problem this time is Pittsburgh is career-wise in Chicago 1-12. They've won one game, and that was in 1995.
Pre-Nicholas and Ricky, we can say.
Yes.
Pre-Nicholas and Ricky. That's an interesting record you bring up because you look at, you said Pittsburgh versus Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Is that what that was? But then you look at Aaron Rodgers and his record in his years playing the Packers, including the postseason. He's 25-5 all time against the Chicago Bears.
That's some Big Ben Browns numbers right there.
Yeah. The damage that Big Ben was doing to that Cleveland organization. Speaking of the Browns, they're starting Shedeur Sanders against the Raiders on Sunday. Somehow, in Week 12, the Las Vegas Raiders versus the Cleveland Browns is a 4:05 must-watch football game for people because of the fact that Shedeur Sanders will start. He looked great. He did not look great when he came onto the field on Sunday. A couple errant passes that I think just it comes with time, and I hate when people automatically get a quarter or two sample size of a quarterback and they immediately write him off and say he's not the real deal. We got to give it a little bit. And I imagine he would probably start the rest of the season, right? I know Dylan Gabriel is
Dylan
injured.
had a shot, and he's also injured.
He had a shot. And what's the Browns' record right now?
Not good.
Not great.
Yeah, Joe, they're on their 3rd starting QB.
It's tough. And to think that Deshaun's on that roster. Deshaun Watson's on that roster.
I think they've seen enough.
Kenny Pickett started the season on that roster.
Yep.
That is just... I know we talked such positive things last night.
Yeah.
What's the worst? Well, that was the one thing I wanted to get to, and we briefly by briefly, maybe in 15 seconds, yelled out Raiders as the worst team in the NFL.
I had a little pushback to that. I think there's
the Titans. I think you mentioned the Titans as well. They're in they're in a crappy situation, a very, very crappy situation. But what is there? I know you kind of think the Titans. Is there a reason you would say the Titans are in a worse situation than the Raiders? Because you look at the two teams, at least the Titans have a quarterback that they can use in the future who has had his moments. Right now, the Raiders are throwing out their Geno Smith, and they've got to go find their quarterback in 2026 draft, where we've talked numerous times. We don't know who's going to be the legit number one quarterback out of this draft class. But is there one particular reason that you maybe think the Titans are the worst team in the NFL right now?
Well, I think you look at who's around Cam Ward. They may have a quarterback, but what is around Cam Ward isn't
not much.
Their best wide receiver, Calvin Ridley, who's probably be most teams' wide receiver 2, maybe 3, depending on the team. I like Eli Manor. I think Eli Manor is a real solid player and was a great pick out of Stanford, but he's their wide receiver 1 right now. Shamari DK is their wide receiver 2. He's had a good year. He's had some special teams plays, but Van Jefferson, very familiar with Van Jefferson.
Yeah, you are.
Very familiar. That's not a guy you want at wide receiver 3. Pittsburgh had him at wide receiver 2 last year. That didn't go well. But, I look at that. I also look at the Raiders. They have Ashton Jeanty. Brock Bowers is an all-world tight end. Do you really look at this Titans roster and say, wow, they've got something? They signed Dan Moore. Dan Moore was not worth $82 million. I would like to thank the Titans for that third-round compensatory pick. Thank you for that. They got some linemen, Skoronski. They signed Zietler. But I just look at this team. I don't see anything around Cam Ward. They fired their head coach. Things have just not gone as planned. At least I'd classify the Raiders more as disappointing. The Raiders were very obviously, I think, pushing their chips maybe not all in, but they had higher expectations. You don't hire a 74-year-old head coach and Pete Carroll, a Super Bowl winner. You don't bring in Geno Smith, who had some career resurrection in Seattle, along with bringing back Jacoby Myers, of course, having Brock Bowers. They have Max Crosby. They reloaded with some veteran defensive talent. That draft Ashton Jeanty, who is, if you're a win now team, you don't. If you're a team, I think in and if you're a team that's
go ahead.
If you're a team that's rebuilding, I don't think Ashton Jeanty is a piece where you go, yeah, we're going to rebuild with him and then not put some good pieces in front of him.
That's the thing I was just going to say. You have a number 6 overall pick like the Raiders did last year. You can go. There are so many teams throughout the NFL whose RB2 could be a competent RB1 in many other situations. And the fact that the Raiders, he has no freaking time. Geno Smith.
No.
In the pocket. That offensive line is horrible. What did Ashton Jeanty have? What do you have? 6 carries for 7 yards? Yeah. Funny. But he genuinely, it's just small dump offs every single time with that team. And
they also don't have any weapons. Outside of Brock Bowers.
Outside of Brock Bowers.
They traded their best weapon.
Trey Tucker had one of the greatest games of all time, and I don't think he's touched the football since back in week 3. I mean, at the end of the day, you got one of the best defensive players in the league.
They could have went with Ahmad Membu, who's having a good year with the Jets. Tet McMillan was there out of Arizona.
Tyler Booker would have helped your offensive line.
Tyler Booker would have helped.
I mean, there were a lot of options, and I understand Jeanty with what he did last season and the numbers he was putting up at Boise State were impressive, and you look at that, and, for you and I, what's the sexy pick? A running back that almost ran for 2,000 yards or a big offensive lineman that you're never going to hear from in highlights, over social media. But at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for the team. You and I, you're obviously a big Steelers fan. I'm a big Broncos fan. I think if you take the backups on both of our teams and put them in the Raiders system and they drafted an offensive lineman to bolster. Now, I'm not saying one offensive lineman is going to change the entire running game for your team. But I think it would at least be improved over an Ashton Genty if you threw Kenneth Gainwell in the backfield there. Yeah. At least with a solid offensive line. You throw a Jaleel McLaughlin in the backfield. You can go through every team. The Eagles situation, you put Will Shipley back there with and you go and you draft an offensive lineman. You have someone like Will Shipley there. I think he's putting up solid numbers. But again, you need an offensive line to start the running game. And that's the issue you've had with the Steelers over, moments in this season. It's the issues the Eagles are having right now with their offensive line.
Well, they're just old.
It's just injured and old. It's a different story. But they don't have it. No. And that's why Saquon Barkley hasn't even reached 700 rushing yards this season. And we're already in week 12. I would love to find out what he was at in week 12 of last season. Had to be way north of 1,000. Way north of 1,000.
Easily. And you even look at Saquon Barkley, what he did in New York. I mean, he didn't reach his full potential until he left for Philadelphia. The Giants have been investing in their offensive line my entire lifetime, and it still has not paid off.
Still not good.
But I will rarely complain about a team picking an offensive lineman. But again, there are certain cases where I think, you may reach on an offensive lineman, but an offensive lineman, like a Joe Alt, that wasn't a sexy pick a couple years ago by the Chargers. Now, has he dealt with ankle injuries? Sure. The guy's a stud.
But when he's on the field, my God.
The guy's a stud. I mean, you look at an offensive lineman, especially a good one, it's a 10-year investment. You're locked in at that position. If you're going to pay the guy for what, 10 years, you don't have to worry about that position again, and you can just build around them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. A
Titans
tough
have done
situation.
That too.
The Titans, I think, they're just booty, like you were saying.
I feel bad for Cam Ward.
You do. You feel bad for him. He almost beat the Broncos week 1.
He did. It was a good. Oh, didn't they have like 4 turnovers and still lost? Didn't Denver turn over the ball?
Yeah, but I think Denver forced multiple turnovers and they only won the game.
Oh, that was okay.
Point.
I didn't know if it was. The
Broncos don't like to win games pretty. They like to.
They don't.
They invest in a full 60 minutes of football.
Yeah, they're going to keep you there. Just like last week, just like the week before on Thursday Night
Sean
Football.
Payton's big into those TV ratings. I know he left the TV business when he became a coach again, but he's still all about those TV ratings. You were going to sit there from 4:05 to 7:15 watching my football team play.
Well, you won't have to watch them this week because they're on a bye.
No, I don't have to watch them this week. And they got the whole week off. It's good for the Broncos. Good for the Broncos. I know last night we touched on the Chicago Bears and the where they stack up among the NFC, and it's always hard to predict one of those teams that you expected near the bottom of the conference, and now 12 weeks into the season, they've come out and really surprised some people, and I think they're starting to grow a bit of an identity on offense with Ben Johnson and this explosive team. And, they have moments where DeAndre Swift has looked really good, but also Kyle Monangai has stepped in, and he's had a big few weeks for them as well. And with DJ Moore, I'm not sure. Is DJ Moore healthy? I feel like it's a question every week.
He's questionable.
The
defense is the bigger question mark. I don't know if you saw the injury report there. Well, Denver's defense, but that's probably the bigger story.
The Bears defense?
Yes, it's a very lot of limiteds and outs, DNPs this Thursday afternoon.
If it's Mason Rudolph on the field, then you got to feel good if you're Mike Tomlin and the Steelers going into this game, knowing the Chicago defense isn't fully healthy. And I know Aaron Rodgers was on the practice field today, but he's going to have to be injecting some serious painkillers in that wrist to get on the field on Sunday. And I also, if you're the Steelers, I'm okay with Mason Rudolph starting.
There's some positives. There's some negatives, but
he's competent.
Yeah, he's. I know Mark Caboli on the Pat McAfee shows called him on numerous occasions the best backup QB in the NFL.
He's up there.
He is. He certainly comes in
with the Mac Joneses of the world as well.
The floor is very high with him. Not sure the ceiling's high, but the floor is really, really high with Mason Rudolph. I think at this point in his career, and one of the positives I think with Mason Rudolph in there, guy's not afraid to throw it deep. A lot of these backup QBs, they're asking there, hey, just keep us in there. Mason Rudolph doesn't care. He will fling that thing 40 yards down the field because that is the way he plays football. Mason Rudolph is not afraid to push the ball down the field and be a risk taker. Mm-hmm. That is a big part of his game, and he talked a little bit about the enjoyment he gets from playing here. He said he was drafted here. Winning with this team means a lot to him, and he's excited. And when called upon, he's expected to be ready. I know Arthur Smith talked a little bit this week about not knowing which QB is going to start. He said he dealt with a lot of that last year with Russ and Justin Fields. And he says you just got to be ready to adjust on the fly. And I'm sure there's some similarities, but Mike Tomlin also said that there are some things that Mason Rudolph does highlight to Arthur Smith that if he was to go in, he's comfortable doing this, or there were some things that he'd rather do this. And I think at this point in Mason Rudolph's career, he's better at staying cool in the pocket. I think Aaron Rodgers at times this season, it gets a little fidgety, doesn't want to be hit, whether it's his passes going high, whether he's throwing it away, whether he's throwing a check down. At this point in his career, I think Mason Rudolph has shown the willingness and ability to stand in there and make some plays and take some shots at this point in his career, rather than Aaron Rodgers, who at 41 probably doesn't want to be taking many hits, especially maybe dealing with a wrist injury this week against Chicago.
Yeah, especially if it's his teammate trying to go tackle him.
Broderick.
He's not a big fan of his own teammates tackling him.
I don't think, yeah.
Understandable at age 41. We're going to take a quick break here on 28-22 Sports Night. When we get back, we'll touch on some more football in the NFL and the whole Week 12 slate kicking off tonight between Bills and Texans, and also what else to look for. And Penn State, also final home game of the season at Beaver Stadium against the Cornhuskers of Nebraska. We'll be right back. Back here on 28-22 Sports Night, the verdict came out on Mr. George and Mr. CD officially. Did you see this, Ricky?
Yes, I did. I did on my busy day. I did see that.
George Pickens, CD Lamb, just wanted to enjoy the Vegas nightlife, because who wouldn't? There were reports. I shouldn't say reports. That's awful of me to say that. There were goofballs on social media saying they saw CD Lamb number 3ing outside a casino at 7 a.m. He denied that, but he did say that him and Pickens were out for dinner and had a few drinks at a casino and were out past the 10 p.m. curfew that I'm guessing Mr. Schottenheimer set. I don't know. Who sets curfew for grown men? Probably the coach, right?
It's Vegas. I don't think you want. I don't. I guess
wonder if
it's
Jerry
a Monday
Jones.
night
Maybe
game,
Jerry Jones was giving credit. Jerry Jones probably with them. Honestly, he probably encouraged them. Hey guys, let's go have a nice meal, a few drinks, play some slots. Yeah. Let's put some money on our overs, because surely that goes over well. But at the end of the day, it's bonkers to me, because they are sidelined for a series and then go out there and they each score a touchdown. They put up over 100 receiving yards, close to 200 combined between the two. And it's just like, it raises the question in my mind about athlete star treatment. And I know there's a thing about athletes are humans too. And, they're just normal people. They're not these elevated status folks. But, I mean, at the end of the day, like Ricky, if you showed up, say you're here at 3 p.m. every day for work. Say you spent, when we had this conversation the other day, you're at Mohegan Sun until 8 a.m. drinking, eating, throwing your chips on the table. And then you decide to still get your 8 hours of sleep in that morning. You're like, you know what? Set an alarm for 4 p.m. and show up late to work. What's happening?
Probably getting called in
the big man's office.
Yeah, the big man's office.
The big man's office.
Ask why I'm late, why I'm dodging phone calls.
Yeah, it'd be a lot. Your phone would be blowing up.
Yeah.
Your phone would be blowing up. Now, I don't know if the consequence would be, hey, Ricky, we're going to take you away from sports for 15 minutes, and then you can go back in there. I think you'd have a much longer conversation with a few people.
Probably get a verbal warning.
A verbal warning. Is that technically what they got? Do you think a verbal warning?
Probably was a little more.
Maybe they had to listen to Jerry Jones talk for 45 minutes, strapped to a seat. And just
these are also two of the leaders of this team. I know.
Which makes it not
maybe
great
more so
either.
CD more than George since he just got here, but these are the two guys that they're the faces of the
a storied franchise like the Cowboys,
and you got to represent them accordingly. And fans people know who they are. People know CD Lamb and George Pickens. They recognize faces even in Vegas. A lot of sports fans, especially. They're probably at the casinos.
Especially
late at night.
when the brain is got a couple bevs in the system.
Yeah, want to come up to you, take a picture.
CD.
I got the over.
ATD. Anytime touchdown, please.
Touchdown.
You're absolutely right. And for it to be, is it that big of a deal if it's another team, if it's a player from the Seahawks compared to the Dallas Cowboys?
Probably.
You think so?
It's different, or
I feel like it would be. I feel like it's the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh yeah, anything with the big, especially the Dallas.
If
Cowboys,
Jake Bobo's going out until 5 a.m,
it's not going to be as big of a deal. I mean, I'm sure he's going to get a punishment, but is Jake Bobo going to get the same? Jake Bobo also really plays for the Seahawks. He's primarily used as a
the first non-Jackson Smith and Jigbo receiver that came to mind.
But again,
on Seattle.
Yeah, Keon Coleman. I mean, he got the penalty was a little bit harsher on Mr. Keon Coleman.
He's missing another game tonight.
Yeah, team meeting, and they're missing.
He's not playing again tonight. Coach's decision.
Yeah, what you call it runs a tight ship there.
McDermott?
I'm not saying Schottenheimer doesn't. I've liked the job Schottenheimer's done with that locker room. I think, there were some questions early on. So, nepotism, is it Schottenheimer really the guy? But he surprised me, especially some of the clips coming out of that locker room. He seems like a guy that all the coaches galvanize around. And he saw him late in that game with CD and George. They were dapping. They were having a good time. He was hugging them. I guess when you respond with 6 receptions, 106 yards, and a TD, and then you have both combined for almost 200 yards, I guess your coach is gonna hug you. But
nice job, guys. Are we up? Are we up? How much money did we go up last night?
He was probably a little disappointed in them. He's probably like, I've got to do something here. I can't just. And that's a good example. I still chuckle at George's answer of, the Cowboys, we try to establish. Yeah, it's a run. Yeah, sure, George. Yeah, we're just going to take our 2 best playmakers off the field and put a Flournoy and Tolbert out there and see if it catches them off guard. Again, I guess when you're playing a team like the Raiders, it doesn't matter as much. Maybe if they're playing a team like the Eagles this week, do they do the same thing?
No, they're running a couple extra laps of practice the next Tuesday.
Yeah, every drive matters. That might be might be some change coming out of their pocket instead of taking them off the field for that game.
Yeah, especially if Schottenheimer finds out they won big. I wonder what they got for dinner. I wonder where they went for dinner. I'd be really curious to know. Again, you're a waiter in Las Vegas at a restaurant, any given restaurant in this Red Rock casino. I'm not familiar with it. But, come on. You're serving George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, and there's no pictures or videos or anything. Knowing who's in town for a Monday night game the next night.
Up here at Mohegan Sun, they got a Ruth Chris, but I'm sure they went bigger than that.
Probably went a little bigger than Ruth Chris. I've actually never been there. Is it good?
I've never been there either.
Sounds good. See you next weekend.
Yeah.
Next Sunday night.
Our goal
before
every
work
time
on
to
Monday.
go to the casino is to win enough and get a dinner at Ruth Chris, but
That's the goal. That's the objective. And we make
it
sure
doesn't happen that way.
we don't have curfew though, so we can go at whatever time we'd like.
No, we did. Yeah, Saturday.
So this
Sunday.
is a weekday.
A week.
thing. In the middle of the week, you got to test yourself. You got to challenge yourself.
That's true. The tables are a little cheaper. Blackjack, they have the $15 tables against rather than the $25 buy-in tables.
Yeah, we're strategic with our money over here at 2822.
It's also less crowds.
That's true. Probably a little less crowded at the Mohegan in Wilkes-Barre compared to a downtown casino in Las Vegas when the Dallas Cowboys are in town. All right, that's enough on those two goofballs. They've done their due diligence. We've talked about them all week. Our lovely Cowboys fan isn't here today, but I'm sure she's happy to know that CD did not get sick. He did not have his flu game moment. Would have been pretty awesome, but he didn't have his flu game moment. And the Cowboys, who did they play this week? Who did the Cowboys play? The Eagles. They play the Eagles this week.
The Eagles.
I was for a 6:00 show earlier today. I was listening back to what Jalen Hurts had to say in his media press conference, and the first 4 minutes, all questions about what's the frustration level in the locker room. Are you frustrated, Jalen Hurts? Is A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith frustrated at you? It was over and over and over and over again. And I have to give a lot of props to Jalen Hurts because he really handled himself well, which he always does. Yeah. He is cool. A pro's pro at just speaking, especially in front of a bunch of people. But he took a lot of the ownership, and I don't think he had to. There was one player, I think it was Deshaun Jackson on a radio show earlier this week, said that he's convinced there's something else going on behind the scenes because he had a certain situation when he was in the NFL and there was a disagreement between him and a quarterback, and it affected things on the field. I don't think we ever find out what's going on with this team. And again, there's all this drama surrounding a team that you would think they're 2-8 instead of 8-2, the way we talk about them and the way they're portrayed across the league and across the country. But nonetheless, they have a chance to play a Cowboys team that has a strength in defense this week. And I think the Eagles have an opportunity to really prove themselves against I think this is a better Cowboys team than the one they faced back in week 1. And the offense for Dallas is obviously on a trajectory upwards. And this is a chance for the Eagles to kind of silence a lot of haters and doubters and go 2-0 against their arch rivals and the Cowboys. And should be a really fun game on Sunday for sure, Ricky.
Yeah, it should be. These two, again, played in a really good game in week 1. I think CeeDee Lamb might have this game circled because he had a really, really poor performance. He had 2 big drops.
He had dropped that huge pass at the end.
Two drops down the stretch for CeeDee Lamb in that game, and it resulted in an Eagles win, and an ugly Eagles win. You know, you sort of thought they'd get the run game going and everything figured out by now from then, but it is still, there's some lingering issues there. But yeah, you mentioned it's an improved Dallas defense. They bring in Quinnen Williams. They bring in a Logan Wilson. They have a Duron Bland, and they have I think Trayvon Diggs still in that secondary, both getting paid a lot of money. I can't personally after this season, I can't see him keeping both because of the money and production that they're giving you, as well as they need some money this offseason if they want to pay that number 3 on the outside there in the
depending on where he was getting dinner, they might look at him and be like, "You're all good, buddy. You got a fat chunk of change in that pocket."
He's getting paid $3 million this year. He's gonna need a little bit more than that. But yeah,
spent $3 million over the weekend.
Yeah,
continue.
Might have. Dallas, they got the run game going. Javonte Williams has looked really good this season. The offense, of course, is the spearhead of this team with Jake Ferguson and, of course, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens on the outside. But yeah, the real story here is, what is this Eagles offense going to look like? And honestly, at this point in the season, do we really expect anything to change? I mean, what are we? Week 11, week 12? Going into week 12 right now. I mean, at this point in the year, I mean, you probably are who you are. You are who you put on film each week, and the film that this offense puts out each week is that they're not that explosive. They're inconsistent at times, but they find ways to get it done. They put one or two good drives together. They have a championship-level defense that they're really, really leaning on, and, not a bad thing. They haven't given up much thus far. They've played relatively well and are responsible for a lot of the victories that this team has, but we'll see if Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith get going. But again, at this point, the passing game is pretty much the same as it was last season. Mm-hmm. It's predictable, lack of creativity. They run the same routes. They run a lot of hitch routes. It's a lot of slants to A.J. Brown. They don't try to stretch the field vertically enough. They don't make enough splash plays in the passing game. I mean, they are who they are who they are at this point in the year. But if they want to win this game, they're going to have to lean on their defense. They're going to have to create some turnovers, and they're going to have to limit another explosive offense for the third week in a row, which they have done. They limited Detroit. They got pressure on them. They limited Green Bay, although they were banged up a little bit. They have shown this year that they can limit great offenses. They shut down the Rams in the second half of a game they played earlier in the year. They shut down Tampa Bay for a good portion of the game they played earlier this year. So this defense, they're going to lean on them. And you could argue they're a better pass rushing team than they were in the beginning of the year. Jalix Hunt is no longer your starting pass rusher. It's Jalen Phillips, and then Nolan Smith is also returned. So this pass rushing unit could look a lot better. And we saw what happened the last time Dallas faced a formidable pass rush in the Denver Broncos. Not comparing those two pass rushes, because Denver, obviously, you could argue that team is the best pass rushing quartet in the league. The people they have up front with Benito, Cooper, Zach Allen. But it's gonna be a fun game. It's gonna be a close game. But
who wins?
I'm going to take the Eagles. The Eagles are 24-3 in their last 27 regular season.
They find a way.
It's not pretty. It's not something you make, wow, the Eagles played up. Yeah, I don't think you've heard a while, if at all, this year, someone say, wow, the Eagles played a great 4 quarters of football on both sides. You haven't heard that this year. It's going to be. I expect the defense to create 1 or 2 turnovers like they have in recent weeks, get short field, capitalize on that, and keep Dallas maybe around 20 points, maybe below that. I'd probably take the Eagles, 24-17, 24-21.
Everyone always is critiquing and criticizing Jalen Hurts for saying, you just got to find a way to win, and that's what they freaking do, man. That's what they do.
And he's not turning the ball over. That is one thing.
No, 16 touchdowns to 1 interception.
The guy doesn't. Maybe that's that's what AJ Brown wants, because AJ Brown was asked. This was a setup question. It was He's like, what do you think when you see receivers like Jamar Chase around the league, the Puka Nacua, JSN? What do you? He's like, it's disgusting, man. Or he's like, it's disappointing, man. Or something along that. It was a ruthless setup question, but
I mean,
they find ways to win. But AJ Brown likes them numbers, though. He wants that.
AJ does like those numbers. Well, guess what? The number in his paycheck, I think, is suitable, regardless of what he's putting
paid
out
a good
in the
amount.
field. He is getting paid a good amount. Real quick before we go to break, because we'll probably wrap up on NFL here and talk a little college football. Realistically, what happens in Chicago?
I think it's another close game. I don't think this game's going to go one way. I can't see this game going one way or the other.
Tie.
Nah. Last time they played in Chicago almost was. Went into overtime. Mike Glennon. We lost to Mike Glennon in Chicago. It was not fun. But Pittsburgh's got to stop the run. That's the bread and butter of this Ben Johnson offense, the run. They're second in the NFL against the run. You mentioned DeAndre Swift has pulled off some big runs. Kyle Monungai is more of their power back. DeAndre Swift is a Walmart version of Jahmyr Gibbs right now. Certainly doesn't bring the threat in the passing game.
And Caleb Williams isn't afraid to use his legs either.
Caleb Williams, I think, is it's the longest sack or snap to sack ratio in the NFL at 5 seconds. Caleb Williams is a master at running around. Second in the NFL is the Eagles, by the way. But Caleb Williams uses his legs as well. Pittsburgh has got to control that. Their passing game, they're 12th in the NFL, and it's the two young guys. It's O'Dunes and Colston Loveland, who's gotten a majority of the snaps in recent weeks. I'm going to take the Bears. I think Pittsburgh keeps this one close. I think the run game, the Bears do not have a great run game. They're run defense. They're 25th ranked in the NFL. I think Pittsburgh finds some success there, but if they're going to win this game, you got to get the freaks of nature involved. Darnell and DK. That's what's carried this offense. I don't think
311 pounds.
6'7", 311 pounds. That's 1 inch shorter and 11 pounds lighter, 1 inch taller and 11 pounds lighter than Lane Johnson. So yes, it is figuratively a sixth offensive lineman on the field. But I'm going to take the Bears in this one. Okay. I'm going to take them in a very similar score. I'll take them probably 20. I'll probably take them 24-21 as well. The Bears are the cardiac kids. They'll pull this one off late in the fourth quarter. And I don't think the Steelers offense inspires too much confidence unless. Who knows? Maybe Aaron Rodgers gets it done, but I'm going to take the Bears until Aaron Rodgers hopefully proves me wrong, or Mason Rudolph, whoever will start this week.
Cool. Just wanted to get your thoughts. On that. All right, we're going to touch some Penn State. When we get back, we'll take a quick break right here on 28-22 Sports Night. Back here on the show. I was scrolling Twitter during that commercial break, and are you familiar, Ricky, with the NFL Network folks? They always have that graphic of their score predictions. Adam Rank is very popular among the Denver Broncos fans because he always is the only one to pick the Broncos. They had their game preview picks for Browns Raiders, and I know we were talking about that earlier on in the show. Adam Rank has the final score 2-2.
Tie,
2-2 ball game. A 2-2 ball game. These scores are ugly. 8-5, one person said the Browns winning.
8-5. Well, again, the Browns have that really good defense, so you're wondering how, and with no weapons,
it's crazy.
It's going to be, and then you got
put Myles Garrett on offense. You might do something.
You might break the sack record.
What is he at now?
At 15.
He's
Nick, because I know Nick Bonito was up there for a while.
He was on pace for a little bit, but he cooled down. But it's a team effort over in Denver.
Yes, it is very much. Very much. By committee, sacks by committee.
We are at a point in the season now where the Chiefs are playing a 1:00 game and Raiders Browns is 4:05. I don't know how to feel about that because that 1:00 slate is always just. I can't offend you because the Steelers play at 1:00 a lot. Usually it's a tough slate at 1:00.
Well, it's also mostly West Coast teams that play. That's probably why.
Look at the top of the standings in both conferences.
Yes, the West, and then got the
Rams. Seahawks, the Rams, the Broncos, the Chiefs, the Chargers,
Chiefs,
the Niners.
Chiefs are 9th in the AFC.
You're right. I'm falling into the trap of talking about the Chiefs when we shouldn't be talking about the Chiefs. That's on me. I'm being sucked in too much. Let's not talk about the Chiefs. Let's talk about the Nittany Lions. They got one final game at Beaver Stadium. I saw James Franklin updated his Twitter page earlier today. Now the official head coach of the Virginia Tech Hokies. Go Hokies. But if you're Penn State, what are you playing for? And I think that's the big question going into this game against Nebraska. Well, you still want to play a bowl game. I think if you're Terry Smith, you may be coaching to be a possible candidate down the line because we keep crossing off Kurt Signetti. We cross off Matt Rule. All these names that pop up in the rumor mill of, they're going to be the next coach at Penn State. Well, that happens, and then the following week they're signing an 8-year extension to stay in the Midwest until the mid-2030s. But for Terry Smith, I think a lot of people have really gravitated towards him as a head coach and his longtime connection. His father went to Penn State. He obviously played at Penn State, and the situation he was thrown into, it was a difficult one. and the results haven't been pretty. He's 1-3 now in his four games as head coach, but they go on the road to East Lansing and beat Michigan State for his first victory. And then this past week, he was very emotional. This press conference talking about, how his team really hasn't given up on him and he's had this opportunity. So that's what you play for if you're Penn State. You still have a chance to go play in a bowl game against an unfamiliar opponent. And I know this is senior day this week, and if you play in a bowl game where you're 6-6, I don't know how many of those top seniors play in a bowl game. I think Grunkemeyer would absolutely play because he's still a fresh, young player on the roster. He has a lot to prove. But does Nick Singleton or Katron Allen play? Do they maybe let the younger guys? They're worried about more their NFL combine numbers and focus on the NFL draft. But I still think if you're Penn State, you want to beat Nebraska. You want to go against a guy in Matt Rule who's from State College and he's coming back home to coach, and go beat them. Go beat Nebraska. Go give yourself an opportunity to play in a bowl game. And I know it's not as exciting as being part of that 12-team bracket at the end of the year, but it's still something to play for. And I imagine Terry Smith is, reinforcing that to his team as well. Like, this isn't an incomplete season. With everything that's happened, it would be more of a positive going into 2026 if you can win a couple games, maybe get to a bowl game, and you win that. And look at that. You're going into next season on a 4-game winning streak.
Yeah, and this is some fun facts. This is also the second time in FBS history that two former lettermen of colleges are facing off against each other. The last time, obviously with Matt Rule and Terry Smith, the last time that happened was in 2016 when Matt Rule was a coach at Temple and faced off against UConn and Bob Diaco. So Matt Rule's got some history there, and Matt Rule, if you mentioned, a name that was tied to Penn State very early after Franklin was relieved of his duties. But question still remains is who's going to be this Penn State coach. And Terry Smith, I think, also said this week, it's a possibility that maybe he follows James Franklin at Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
And, especially for a guy like Terry Smith, I'm sure James Franklin, he seems like a guy that would love to have Terry Smith back on board based off of what we learned off of Terry Smith so far this year and the type of man he is and the type of program that or the type of performances that they've put out, and seeing how much that first win meant to him getting that first win last week against Michigan State. And it's going to be another tough game here. Penn State's actually favored in this game against Nebraska. I think they're 7.5-point favorites.
Yeah, they're big favorites.
Nebraska has actually they've been in some close contests lately. They've played some tight games against UCLA. They barely won last week. They've played Nebraska, or they played USC pretty tough, losing 21-17. Minnesota, they did get blown out 24-6 when they were the 25th ranked team in the country, and that's what got them knocked off the rankings as the Golden Gophers won big there. But a lot of games have been close this season for the Cornhuskers. And, if you look at some of their players, Dylan Raiola is obviously the big one at quarterback, a guy who is compared constantly to Patrick Mahomes with his mannerisms.
Yep.
I think he wears 15. I think, does he wear like a headband as well?
Yes, he's got the headband.
He's got the headband. He's thrown for
the everything.
2,000 yards, 18 TDs, 6 INTs there for Nebraska. His brother also decommitted recently from Nebraska.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that, but
I did.
Raiola is still a sophomore, so maybe is that the writing on the wall? Is Raiola going to transfer from Nebraska after this year? But again, they're also led by, of course,
who's going to offer the most zeros? That's the
right.
answer.
That's a very good point. Emmett Johnson is their guy on the ground, ran for over 1,000 yards, has 11 TD, averaging over 5 yards a carry there for the Cornhuskers. They're big-time receivers. You look at Neziah Hunter, the sophomore out of California. He's got 590 yards and 5 TDs, but this is going to mean a lot to both of these programs. Matt Rule, of course, being a letterman of that Penn State, having those Penn State ties, and then Terry Smith honoring these seniors that include Drew Aller, who got injured. I'm sure that's going to be a big ovation, I'd have to guess. But this class has been a part of a lot of success. They won a Rose Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. Made a run in the college football playoffs. Are they? Didn't you say they were like the winningest class?
Yeah, they've won 38 games, and it's so hard to grade. It's with all the transfers, red shirts, everything. But if you look at the last 4 years, and if there's any players that have just done the normal route, 4 years, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year of college, 38 wins is the most since the early 1970s. There was a 4-year span where they won 42 games, Penn State. So you're talking about one of the senior classes that's been a part of, like you said, one of the most winningest times for this Penn State program.
And yeah, players like, as I mentioned, Drew Aller, Nick Dawkins, very vocal presence.
Dominic DeLuca.
Yes, Dom DeLuca will be there as well. A really great story from special teamer to starting linebacker. Made a big play in last year's home playoff game at SMU. Was again one of the better stories that you'll see coming out of Penn State. Mm-hmm. A guy who just worked his tail off. And we talked to Randy Spencer earlier this year, and he said he could see this guy being,
Yeah, we're a few months away from the draft. We're a few months away from that NFL draft. You never know.
He could be a guy who's one of those undrafted free agents, is caught on. I mean, we just had one recently in this area. C.J. Dupree, undrafted free agent, is now on the Patriots' active roster. But Zachy Wheatley, of course, Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, these guys have all had, I think, major imprints on this program. And it's certainly the end of an era, it feels like. It feels like a changing of the guard type deal with all the success in recent years. It reminds me of the bad boy Pistons. They're walking off the floor. They're not going to shake hands with MJ's Bulls over there. But it's a changing of the guard, and it's certainly going to be interesting to see. And I'm sure that class itself they're going to get paid respect. And of course, it's a primetime game. And I'm sure these students they're going to be glad that they're going out under the lights at the stadium, at Beaver Stadium, one last time in front of that home crowd, which I'm sure will pay them the respect that they are due for the talent and the amount of success, maybe not some championship success, but just winning, 10 games a year for the last 3 years, outside of this year, of course, where you're still fighting to get a bowl game.
No doubt. And Drew Aller spoke to the media for the first time since getting hurt, and he was saying that those 72 hours where he gets hurt and then Franklin gets fired was the worst weekend of his entire life. Just all of that just blended together. And he says he's making progress, and he doesn't know when he'll be good. Obviously, he's out of eligibility at this point, so we're thinking more for the NFL. But that'll be big because he's been a fan favorite at that school, and the run they went on last year in the college football playoffs, he played a major part in that, being the team's starting quarterback, and knowing the pressure that was on that program to win big games. Well, they did exactly that, reaching the college football semifinals and being possibly 2 minutes away from reaching a national championship. And yeah, like you said, this senior class did a lot of great things. They did a lot of great things. They were always a preseason top 5 team every single year. They were competing for major bowl games, competing for college football playoff spots. This was a team that, like Terry Smith said, this senior class helped put Penn State on the map and set a not put it on the map necessarily, they were already on the map, but set a standard moving forward, because they hadn't, 3 straight 10-plus win seasons hadn't happened in 50 years. All the teams that Joe Paterno coached and all the great players that go through that program, they never had multiple seasons in a row winning 10-plus games, but that's exactly what this class did. They helped contribute to that, and no doubt a very valuable senior class leaving. And like you said, I'm sure everyone's going to be decked. I'm not sure exactly what the crowd's going to look like, but I imagine some sort of maybe whiteout variation for them. I think that would be perfect to be under the lights. NBC, 7 o'clock, Nebraska's in town. The fake version, the Walmart version of Patrick Mahomes you're going against, and should should definitely be a really cool environment for this senior class. And I know Drew Aller's going to be on the sideline and really wanting his guys to get a win for them.
Yeah, I mean, they will. I'm interested to see if Franklin will put out a statement on that. I'm
Maybe
sure
he'll be there.
I'm sure this class meant a lot to him. And you talked about Drew having the worst 72 hours of his life from that injury, and having Franklin be as a result being fired after losing that game to Northwestern. But as a QB, I'm sure he felt responsible in part because of the team's start, and unfortunately, he couldn't finish that Northwestern game. But I'm sure he felt sort of a way, maybe a little bit responsible for the team's lack of success early on, and the guy who brought you to Penn State sort of being let go, and after one heck of a run, winning a lot of games, maybe not translating to postseason success, but winning a lot of games and, being one of the winningest classes in Penn State history. But, I'm sure it's going to be an emotional day there at the stadium, but probably going to be a lot of tears from a lot of those seniors. But we'll see what happens, because again, this team's still fighting for something. They've still got a bowl game.
Go win 6 games this year.
Yeah, they could go win 6 games and still play in a game of meaning late this year.
I know James Franklin said that he appreciated Penn State for his 12 years, but he might be well past. I think he really appreciates his time there. But if I was in James Franklin's shoes, knowing the slander that was coming at me for multiple years and how things ended, I think he may be past that.
That's fair. I was just thinking, I know he's a big player.
But yeah, I totally understand what you're coming from.
He's a big player. He's always been
a very
big
respectable guy. Very respectable guy.
Yeah, he's never been a guy to throw his players under the bus. He's always typically
he's a player's coach, as he called himself.
He's taken the heat when maybe he wasn't supposed to take the heat, but he's never been a guy to let his players take the fire. It's always been him. It's always been his coaching staff to take the blame for that. I'm sure the players at times took the blame for stuff, but he's not a guy who's going to let controversy rip apart the locker room or the media rip apart the locker room and take shots at his players. That's never been his style, but no. I'm sure these players and the players have talked as well about how much he means to them and how much he means to this program. And Terry Smith, I think, touched on that as well. But yeah, this is certainly going to be an interesting game. Also, side note, I forgot, Matt Rule brought on Terry Smith to his staff at Temple when he first got hired. So
fascinating.
There's some connection there as well.
Yeah, so they know each other well. But like you were saying, a lot of those commits that were going to Penn State for James Franklin, now we see them going a little more south, down to Blacksburg, and Virginia Tech is interested. Maybe James Franklin will put his $9 million buyout on the Cornhuskers this weekend and try to cash in on some big underdogs. We got to get another break in, right?
Yeah, we do.
We do? All right. You press that commercial button. We'll be right back in a couple of minutes. God, this was one of the worst weeks of time management on my part. When I'm back, Syracuse will be a top 5 basketball team in the country.
Okay.
Book it. After they beat Houston.
I'll see you about that.
Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you next week.